And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is 10 underrated removal spells in Commander. You know, I talk about removal on my channel a lot, and I say it all the time, removal wins games. I really like putting lots of removal in my deck because it is the great equalizer. No matter what ridiculous thing your opponent is playing. Yes, Rhystic Study is a busted card in the format, easily gets removed by a Krosan Grip. Vorinclex is a huge pain in the butt in a Commander game, easily gets removed by a Swords to Plowshares. So I really like talking about removal and giving people less obvious options that maybe they're not aware of. So I thought I would just make a quick list of removal spells that I actually put in decks a lot and I really don't see other people playing very much. I said underrated, but basically it's a list of cards that I put in decks all the time. They're sort of my go-tos in a way, and I rarely ever see other people playing them in games. And I even checked this time with EDH Rec to make sure that it's not just me. These are actually cards that don't get included in decks very often, or at least not as much as they should be. So I'm going to start out with a couple of honorable mentions first. Envelop, 1 blue instant, counter target sorcery spell. And I'm giving this an honorable mention for a couple of reasons. It's not super crazy powerful, and it's a counter spell, right? It's not technically removal. Is a counter spell removal? You know, you could argue whether it is or not, but I thought I would give it a mention. I think it's a neat little counter spell that probably a lot of people aren't aware of. For me, I tend to only counter the stuff that is just going to end the game. And a lot of the time, those spells that are going to end the game are sorcery spells. The Insurrections, the Rise of the Dark Realms, the Expropriates, and just paying 1 mana to stop your opponent from winning the game seems pretty good. I think it's a pretty neat spell if you're looking for an alternative for a counterspell in your deck. Another honorable mention, Goblin Crater Maker, 1 and a red, Goblin Warrior 2/2. Pay 1, sacrifice Goblin Crater Maker, and choose 1. Goblin Crater Maker deals 2 damage to target creature or destroy target colorless non-land permanent. First of all, this is fantastic because it's an ability staple on a creature, which I always like. To have this in my Gerard deck because my Gerard sort of has that recursion theme, and cards like this work great in that deck. Also, this is double removal, right? You can sacrifice it to deal 2 damage to a creature, so it's creature removal, also destroy target colorless non-land permanent. You know, the first place your mind goes is with artifacts. You know, you can't destroy lands here, so artifacts, you're definitely going to be targeting with this a lot. Also, though, you can get rid of that Ugin off the table. That's a colorless non-land permanent, or maybe any of those Eldrazi that are not indestructible. So sometimes this card can be a real blowout, and I don't see it in Commander games that much, so I thought I'd give it a mention. But getting to the list, starting out at number 10, Winds of Abandon. 1 and a white, sorcery. Exile target creature you don't control. For each creature exiled this way, its controller searches their library for a basic land card. Those players put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle their libraries. And it has overload for white. So this can be 2 mana, I exile any creature, and they get to go get a land. So essentially a Path to Exile, but 2 mana and at sorcery speed. So I guess a worse Path to Exile. But paying 6 mana to exile all your opponent's creatures is phenomenal. And I know people will be like, okay, we all know this card exists. Why are you talking about this? It's a relatively new card. I really don't see it in Commander games at all. I think I've maybe seen an opponent cast this once. I cast it a lot, but other players I see almost never cast it. And if you compare it to a card like Damn, this is a card that people were really gushing over from Modern Horizons 2. Black and a black sorcery, and you can destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated, and you can overload it for 2 white and a white. And I didn't really gush over this card at all. I didn't really mention it in my top cards from Modern Horizons 2 because I just thought it was okay. First of all, it's in Orzhov colors, and Orzhov already has phenomenal removal. So what am I taking out of my deck to put this in? I don't think I would take any of my typical Orzhov removal like my D-Spark or my Toxic Deluge to put Damn in there. Also, I think Winds of Abandon is just better. I mean, I'm paying 2 mana to exile a creature rather than destroy one. The overload cost is more, but it's a one-sided board wipe. The overload on Damn is just a normal old Wrath of God. And to be quite honest, I have never played Wrath of God in a Commander game. I just don't think it's that good because there's just so many better options. For me, I would much rather pay 6 mana and exile all my opponent's creatures and then mine get to stay in play. Yes, you do get to ramp your opponents a little, but okay, whatever. I think the downside there is minimal compared to what you're doing. but yet I don't see it in Commander games that often, and I'm not sure why. Coming in at number 9, Cannibalize. 1 and a black sorcery. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by the same player. Exile one of those creatures and put 2 +1/+1 counters on the other. I just really love this card. It's such a fun, interesting card that you can use in a lot of different ways. I mentioned it in my 10 cards videos before, way back in the beginning, like the first or second episode, I think. So I'm giving it another mention here. This can just be 2 mana, exile a creature. I think that's pretty good. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to pick that creature that your opponent has that you really want to get rid of, and then you pick something that doesn't really matter if you put counters on it, because it's not going to, like maybe their commander that they're never going to attack with, or their soul warden, or something that they don't really care if it has counters on it, and you just get to exile their best creature. Also, though, you can use this on yourself if you want to. You can just pay 2 mana, and that's kind of why I like it, is the versatility of I can pay 2 mana, exile a token, and then put 2 +1/+1 counters on my commander or some creature I want counters on. I really like cards that are versatile that way. Speaking of versatile cards, Status and Statue, another relatively recent card that I almost never see in Commander games. It's a split card. The status side is just a 1 hybrid Golgari mana instant. Target creature gets +1/+1 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. That's pretty good, and also can be considered removal. Your opponent attacks with their big creature, you just quickly give your little token creature +1/+1 and Death Touch, and now you just killed their massive creature for 1 mana. That's pretty good. But more importantly, the statue side, to a black and a green instant, destroy target artifact, creature, or enchantment. 4 mana, instant speed, destroy a creature or artifact or enchantment is pretty darn good, on top of the fact that it has that status side that you can use it for something else. I'm surprised I don't see this in Commander games a lot. I mean, I guess black and green already do have lots of great removal. Maybe that's why, but I think this card definitely should see more play. Coming in at number 7, another card I mentioned in my 10 cards videos, Volcanic Offering. Another card that I put in a lot of decks and I never see anyone else play. 4 and a red instant, destroy target non-basic land you don't control and target non-basic land of an opponent's choice you don't control. Volcanic Offering deals 7 damage to target creature you don't control and 7 damage to target creature of an opponent's choice you don't control. Now, I know people probably don't like this card because it puts the choice in your opponent's hands, but nothing that you control can be touched here. This is just going to be kill 2 of your opponent's creatures, 1 you get to choose and 1 you don't, and kill 2 of your opponent's non-basic lands, 1 you get to choose and 1 you don't. Can be great politically. I think it's fantastic in a Commander game. 5 mana at instant speed is really good for doing this kind of effect. And I had a guy mention in the comments of that 10 cards video, phenomenal in a Calamax deck because it's an instant. Copying this, so now you're killing 4 non-basic lands and 4 creatures. That's pretty nuts. Coming in at number 6, Settle the Wreckage. 2 white instant, exile all attacking creatures target player controls. That player may search their library for that many basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So again, another card that I'm sure everyone is very familiar with, but another card that I just don't see in Commander games very often. I've cast this in a Commander game at least 50 times, and I've seen other players cast this in a Commander game maybe once. I think I've seen it once. That's about it. One of the reasons why I play this card so much is because I just can't stand that Crater Hoof win, and this is a great way to stop that. Maybe my favorite part about this, though, is that it is actually more versatile than you would think. First of all, you don't have to be attacked. Exile all attacking creatures target player controls. So what you can do is let your other opponent get swarmed and hit, and even after damage is already dealt to them, you can then pay for and force the opponent who was doing the damage to exile all their creatures, so it's win-win there. Also, a very niche and interesting way to use this card is I exile my attacking creatures. That's right, this is a very unique and interesting way to ramp in white, where say I have a token deck, I attack with 5 or 6 of my token creatures. I can cast this targeting myself and put 4 or 5 or 6 or however many basic lands from my library directly into play tapped, so it can even be a ramp card. I really like this card, and I don't think it gets played in Commander enough. Coming in at number 5, Bounty Agent. 1 and a white human soldier, 2/2 with vigilance. Tap, sacrifice Bounty Agent, destroy target legendary permanent that's an artifact, creature, or enchantment. Again, just like Winds of Abandon, this is a card that when it came out, I thought, man, everyone's going to be playing this in the format, and really not so much. I haven't seen it that much. Again, I love the versatility of it, that you can target any legendary permanent that's an artifact, creature, or enchantment. There's always lots of those, especially the creature part. You know, everyone's got a commander that you can get with this. And yes, I even checked on EDH Rec on this one because I thought maybe it's just me. It's only in 3,369 decks on EDH Rec. That's not a lot. It's particularly good in any sort of deck where you can get it back, just like with Goblin Crater Maker. Because you have that ability stapled on a creature, it can be really fantastic in, say, a Lurrus deck where you can just keep casting it every turn from your graveyard. In a Tashar deck where I used to have it, where you can keep getting it back. Again, another card that's in my Gerard deck for that reason. So having abilities like that stapled on a creature is always going to be a huge bonus. Coming in at number 4, and to probably no one's surprise, there's a lot of white cards on this list because I make a lot of white decks, for one, and for two, white is the color of removal in my opinion. And again, this is another card that I had to double check because I'm like, man, I never see anyone play this card, but maybe it's just the circles that I'm playing in. I don't know. Unexpectedly absent, only in 2,468 decks on EDH Rec. X white, instant. Put target non-land permanent into its owner's library just beneath the top X cards of that library. And again, I had already mentioned this card in one of my 10 cards videos. This was just an auto include for me in so many decks because I just love the fact that you can hit any non-land permanent with it. And as a lot of people mentioned in the comment section of that video, what makes this card particularly fantastic is you just wait till your opponent searches their library. Wait till they crack that fetch land, or maybe wait until they cast that demonic tutor, and then you fire this off and you just pay the white. You don't have to worry about burying it into their library because what's going to happen is it's going to resolve first. It's going to put that permanent on top of their library if you just pay the white and X is 0, and then they're going to search through their library and then they're going to be forced to shuffle it all in. So they're maybe never going to get it back. Just a really fantastic underrated removal spell, I think. Coming in at number 3, Aftershock. 2 red sorcery. Destroy target artifact, creature, or land. Aftershock deals 3 damage to you. So this is one that I mentioned in my off-color removal video. And the reason why I mentioned in that video is, yes, destroying artifacts and lands in red isn't off-color at all. It's very common. But just straight up destroy a creature in red is actually not common at all. It's very rare, and I really like that. I like, first of all, that this is a mono red card that can just straight up destroy a creature. I also love the versatility. I mean, let's be honest, the 3 damage to you, who cares? That's not really a big deal in Commander. Just 4 mana, I can destroy an artifact or a creature or a land. I really love that versatility. This is a card that's going to sit in your hand and you're going to have so many options to use it on that you're just not going to want to use it right away. You're going to want to wait until the perfect moment for it, especially if you're in a mono red deck. Coming in at number 2, Epic Downfall. 1 and a black sorcery. Exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or greater. And again, this is one that I actually went to EDH Rec to check because I couldn't believe, I'm like, man, I never see this in a game like ever. How popular is it really? It's only in 1,147 decks on EDH Rec. That's essentially nothing out of the possible decks that it can go in. I think it's fantastic. Yes, it's a sorcery, and I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments section telling me that a lot of these removal spells aren't very good because they're sorceries. In my experience, I mean, I've probably seen someone cast a Path to Exile or a Krosan Grip on their turn more than not on their turn, okay? Even the instant speed removal spells I see get cast at sorcery speed more often than not. So yes, I mean, I definitely prefer instant speed over not, but I think probably most of the time you're going to be perfectly okay with casting something at sorcery speed, and 2 mana to exile a creature like that is really good. If they have a mana value of 3, you can get them. So how often are you going to want to be exiling a creature with a mana value of 2 or less? Mana value 3 or greater is going to hit just about everything and will likely always hit the stuff that you really, really want to get rid of. I just think this card is criminally underplayed in the format. And my number 1 card for underrated removal spells in the format is Oust. 1 white sorcery. Put target creature into its owner's library second from the top. Its controller gains 3 life. I put this card in all my mono white decks. You know, I put it in usually my 2-color decks that have white as well. Assuming they're not Orzhov, like Orzhov is fantastic at removal. So I'll probably put this in my white-green decks, maybe my Boros decks as well. It is only in 328 decks on EDH Rec, which essentially means it's not played at all. Maybe me and a handful of other people are the only ones that play this card. I think it's really good. I know people will say, oh, well, you're just putting it into its owner's library second from the top, so they only have to wait 2 turns. I will 99% of the time use this on someone's commander, okay? 1 mana to put someone's commander second from the top, and most of the time, they don't want to wait. Most of the time, I've used this spell on someone's commander, they just put it back in the command zone, because for 1, they don't want to wait 2 turns to get their commander back, and for 2, they don't want to risk accidentally shuffling it in. Again, if they crack a fetch, if they go tutor, they don't want to accidentally shuffle that creature or possibly their commander into their library. Where this spell is also really good is against recursion, okay? Because a lot of people, they'll cheat something into play, like their Razaketh. Okay, now I'm going to put it into your library second from the top, and okay, you're going to draw it in 2 turns, so what? It's in your hand, you can't cast it. So it's great against any deck that wants to be cheating things into play as well. I think it's a great removal spell that definitely needs to get some more play in the format, but that is it for today. That is 10 underrated removal spells in Commander. I think that people should be playing a lot more of these. They're personal favorites of mine, and I don't really see them much in the games that I'm playing. So give them a try, but that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.